I thought proposing would fix us. It just slowed the goodbye we were too scared to say out loud. I think the moment I stopped really believing in marriage was when I caught my mom sleeping in the guest room 3 nights in a row. It wasn't scandalous or loud or marked by any screaming match. No throne plates or dramatic exits. Just the slow, quiet detachment, like their love was closing up shop for the season, and nobody sent out a memo. I was 14, maybe 15, old enough to notice the silence, young enough to still think that love stayed put if you folded all the towels right and said sorry at least once. My parents never divorced, which somehow made it worse. They just voided each other while staying in the same rooms. I think that's why I've always been afraid of long-haul love. It never ends clean. It just runs out of gas on a road with no exits. But anyway, none of that was on my mind the day I proposed to Erin. I really thought I was breaking the cycle, starting a new one. I really did. God, let me back up a little. We met through mutual friends at a brewery trivia night. Cliché as hell, I know. She was wearing this absurd corduroy jacket in July, and I told her she looked like a student film director. She raised an eyebrow and told me I looked like I'd correct people on Reddit for fun. I laughed. She didn't. But I still asked for her number, and somehow she gave it to me. That was 6.5 years ago. Erin has this uncanny ability to occupy a room without competing for it. She's not loud. She just knows herself. People lean in when she talks, not because she's trying to perform, but because it feels rare, like she's only handing you the pieces that matter. She was the first person I ever dated who didn't make me feel like I needed to prove anything. She called me out when I was being performative or trying too hard to be deep. One time I sent her a long, poetic message when we were first dating, and she replied, "Cool. Are you trying to sleep with me or submit to a literary journal?" We moved in together after a year and lived in this place that always smelled faintly of burned toast, no matter what we did to fix it. She was the one who wanted a dog. I was the one who fell in love with it. I introduced her to sci-fi. She tolerated 2.5 seasons of The Expanse. She introduced me to silence. And I mean that in the kindest way. Before her, I used to fill every pause. With noise. With reassurance. With jokes. She taught me that silence doesn't always mean distance. But somewhere along the way, we started losing the rhythm. It didn't happen all at once. More like sand slipping through cupped hands. A miss, how was your day? A dry love you too at night. Texts that became about logistics more than anything sweet. That kind of slow unraveling you tell yourself is just a rough patch, until it's not. A year ago, we had a fight about something stupid. A kitchen sponge. Seriously. She said I always leave in the sink where it festers like a miniature swamp hell. I told her maybe she could just put it back instead of criticizing everything. It turned into this swirling mess about resentment and division of labor and who shows up more emotionally. And I remember thinking, in the middle of her talking, is this how it begins? Like it was an echo of something I'd seen in my parents, and now I was standing in the same room, speaking in the same flattened tone. I hated the thought, so I proposed. Truthfully, I panicked. I bought the ring a week after that fight. I wish I could say it was romantic, but it felt more like calling in an emergency medic for something I knew was fading fast. When I asked, she said yes immediately. No tears, no elaborate montage. Just a soft look on her face like she knew what I was actually asking. And in hindsight, I think she said yes to keep me from breaking. Which brings me to 4 months ago. We'd locked in a wedding date, paid for the venue, told our families. She'd picked out a black dress, non-traditional, of course. I love that about her, that she never cared what people expected. We were at dinner with her little sister and her boyfriend, and they were asking questions about the ceremony, joking about first dances, vows, all of that. Light-hearted stuff. And Erin looked over at me mid-conversation and asked, "Would you want to write our vows together or separately?" I don't know why that question landed in my chest the way it did, like it was asking me something much bigger than what she was saying. Suddenly it felt like we were pretending, dancing on a rug we both knew was getting yanked, slowly but surely, from beneath our feet. I smiled and said, "Together, I think, that's more us." She nodded and turned back to her sister like nothing was wrong. But later that night, in the car, she said, "Would you have still proposed if we hadn't had that fight?" And I said the most suicidal sentence in the universe. I don't know. She didn't say anything right away. She just stayed looking out the windshield. The car was off, but neither of us moved to get out. Streetlights flickered over her face, like we were on some kind of stage for a play we never auditioned for. After a pause, it felt like forever. She said, "I thought so." Quiet, not angry, just done. And somehow, that felt worse than yelling. I opened my mouth, God knows to say what, but she held up a hand. "Don't," she said. "I don't want you to apologize for being honest." But honesty felt useless in that moment, like giving someone a receipt after a bad meal. "Yeah, cool, you paid." But it still sucked. We didn't sleep in the same bed that night. First time that ever happened without one of us being sick or on a trip. I sat on the couch with our dog, Cisco, who kept looking at me like I'd done something deeply, weirdly disappointing. Erin went to bed. I heard her shut the door gently, as if she knew slamming it might be too final, but leaving it open would have been a lie. The next day passed in this surreal, muted haze. We acted like things were fine. Made coffee, avoided eye contact, talked about car insurance. It was almost harder to bear than a breakup, like being ghosts who used to be people. That night, I tried to be bold. I asked her if we could talk. Said maybe we needed real counseling, not TV couple-style bickering and Band-Aids. She agreed, but cautiously. Said she needed space first. "A week," she said. I moved into my friend Jesse's place temporarily. Toted over a duffel and a couple bags like a college kid in emotional exile. Jesse was cool about it. Didn't pry. Gave me crap beers and worse advice. "You just have cold feet," he kept saying. "It's normal. Marriage is basically legalized terror." I nodded along, but that didn't feel right. It wasn't just cold feet. It was cold faith. I'd started to question whether Erin and I still knew each other beneath all the systems we'd built, whether we saw each other still, or if we were just moving between errands and shared alarms and sync calendars. But every time I tried to unpackage that for myself, I remembered one night, 2 years prior, where I came home after getting wrecked by a phone call from my mom. She'd told me my dad had fallen again. He wasn't remembering words now. He kept mixing up the stove for the sink. It wasn't surprising, but it still drilled a hole in me the size of a small childhood. And Erin, I barely even said hello when I walked in. I just dropped the floor in the hallway, back against the shoe rack. She saw my face, dropped what she was holding, and sat beside me. No questions. No, what happened? Just her hand on my chest. Fingers splayed like she was trying to keep something inside from spilling out. We sat there for 20 minutes in total quiet. She didn't flinch when I cried. She helped me take my shoes off. She folded them underneath the bench like they were glass. That night lived so loud in me. And still I doubted everything. A week turned into 10 days. Then 2 weeks. Finally, she called and said, "I think we should go for that counseling appointment. If you're still in." I said, yeah, probably too quickly. First session was neutral. An intro. The therapist, a soft-spoken woman named Grace, asked us our expectations. Erin said, "I want to know if we both actually want the same thing anymore." I think my stomach fell all the way through my legs when she said that. But weirdly, it was kind of a relief. At least we weren't dancing around the wound anymore. The sessions went for a month. We talked in circles sometimes. Other times things cracked wide open. How I bury fear under logistics. How she sometimes feels like she's parenting me emotionally. How we stopped choosing each other in small ways, even while performing the big ones. At the end of the 4th session, when we were asked if we want to continue, Erin said, "I'm not sure anymore." And I knew what she meant. Not just about therapy, about us. We left the office holding hands, but loosely, the way you do when you're not sure what you're holding. Later that night, she sat on our porch in a hoodie I got her from that road trip to Vermont. It was fraying at the sleeves. I joined her and handed her a glass of water. Neither of us was up for wine. The dog was asleep between us, snoring softly like he still believed things were good. She turned to me and said, "If you want out, I need you to say it." But I didn't. I still don't know why I didn't. Some mix of grief and fear and stupid, noble loyalty. Or maybe love. Maybe the part of love that's still rooted around for soil, even when most of it had dried out. So instead I said, "Do you?" She didn't answer. But silence has its own final punctuation. We never formally ended the engagement. There was no dramatic ring throw, no suitcase on the porch, no final slam door. Just a slow gravity shift. Like we were slipping down opposite sides of the same hill, and neither of us was willing to yell, "Wait!" We stayed in the house for another 2 weeks, sort of coexisting like polite strangers. I helped water the plants. She replaced a broken light in the bathroom like it mattered. We even still watched the same shows, but they sat between us with less meaning. Just background noise to keep the quiet from feeling final. I think that's what people don't talk about. How breakups, especially this kind, don't feel sharp until long after the cut. They sting in waves. In The Leftovers, one of those nights, I came home and stopped by the hall closet to grab a hoodie. Inside, up on the shelf, I noticed the wedding candles we'd ordered. The ones her cousin had custom made. Little white jars with our initials and the date that would now never happen. I pulled one down without thinking and twisted it open just to smell it. Lavender and sandalwood. The scent was soft and expensive and made with love by someone who didn't know we were unraveling. I started crying there in the hallway. Quietly, into my sleeve, standing beside the mop bucket and old board games. Mourning something that hadn't even fully died yet, which somehow felt crueler than mourning a clean death. That night, she came into the living room with her laptop open and said, "So, I postponed the venue deposit. They were nice about it. They're holding the spot for a bit." I looked up at her, this person I loved and fought with and panicked next to and dreamt beside, and I realized something awful. I didn't want to get married. Not like this. Not now. And maybe not at all. Not because I don't love her, but because I think we turned our relationship into a line we thought we had to finish. Because my parents never ended anything, I thought that meant I shouldn't either. Because I was scared of the alternative. Because she said yes before she screamed no, and I mistook it for certainty. So I told her the truth. Sitting on our chewed-up couch, legs crossed, heart racing walls around itself. I said, I think we were trying to save something we weren't supposed to save. She didn't flinch. She didn't even look surprised. She just nodded, then whispered, "Yeah, I think we both knew." We didn't split the Spotify immediately, or unfollow each other. We didn't even move out right away. We took it one drawer at a time, one toothbrush, one jacket. We hugged every time someone left the room for the day. I told her I'd still walk the dog until she found a place closer to work. She told me to send her new book recs, even if we weren't together. The last night in the house, we ordered Thai and watched a bad documentary about cults. At one point, she leaned her head onto my shoulder and said, "This doesn't feel like failure." I said, "I know," but I didn't know what it did feel like. The closest thing I come up with, it felt like closing the cover on a beautiful book with an ending that didn't work for you anymore. Not because it was a bad story, but because you outgrew the plot before the climax. It's been 7 weeks now. She's in a new apartment. I helped her paint the wall behind her bed dusty green, the exact shade she always wanted but didn't think our rental would allow. Sis goes with her most of the time, but I still take him weekends. She texted me the other night, "Tried your lentil soup with coconut milk variation. Not bad. Not amazing. You're still better at it." I stared at that message longer than I probably should have. It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't a breadcrumb trail back. It was just her saying, "I still know you. You're still real to me." And that moved something in me I didn't expect. I'm not sure if we'll stay in each other's stories long term. Maybe someday we'll have coffee once a year and half laugh about our almost did it wedding. Maybe we won't talk at all. But I do know this. There's no version of my life, past or future, where Erin wasn't meaningful. She showed me what it felt like to be seen, to be safe, to lose something and still say thank you on the way out. People always say the most important loves are the ones that last. But I don't know. I think maybe the most important ones are the ones that prove you're capable of love in the first place. The ones that teach you your own depth and then let you go